Okay, so welcome to the first episode of Fastback. This is a podcast where we're going to be discussing the Fast and the Furious movies. Uh, Thought it was a good time to do this with the new movie, The Fate of the Furious, coming out next week. What we're going to do is we're going to watch that one first, and then we're going to go backwards. And sprinkled in between there, so it doesn't get too tedious, we're going to throw in some other movies that we're going to talk about. My name is Justin. I'm here with my friend Leaf.
This Leaf?
Leaf, why don't you give them a little bit of an idea of what your experience has been with these movies so far? I've got a little bit more experience with Leaf with these movies. I'm by no means a huge super fan, but we thought that this would be a fun franchise just to get the ball rolling. So, Leaf, why don't you, like I said, give them a little idea of the last time you've seen one of these movies?
I haven't seen one of these. The only one I've ever seen was Tokyo Drift.
That's the third one.
Yeah, the third one. And just seen the trailer a minute ago, I have no idea what's going on. They might as well be in space at this point. I don't know.
Which is probably coming. So that's kind of where it's at. We've seen the third one. We saw that at a $2 movie theater when it came out years ago. We used to meet once a week. What would you say? We live about half hour, 45 minutes away from each other. We grew up together across the street on the same street. At this point, life has taken us to a point where we live about a half hour away. Long story short, we used to meet once a week, once every 2 weeks at a little $2 theater and just pick the most absurd, ridiculous movie we could watch and just watch it for fun. And one of those movies, and I would say one of the better experiences, if not the best $2 experience, was Tokyo Drift.
It was definitely one of the better ones, if not the best.
So we'll talk about that, obviously, when we get to that episode, but Leaf hasn't seen one of those since then, and there was a time up until about a year ago when that was the last one I saw, too. And I had heard again and again and again, just from listening to various podcasts and watching various film pundits on YouTube, about how much fun these movies were and how they've actually become quality for what they are. And I decided one day just to sit down and watch one with Furious 7. So I haven't seen this one that we see next week will be the first one that I've seen in the theater since the $2.
Okay.
I don't think that I saw the Fast and the Furious in the theater. I'm going to take that back. I think I might have. I distinctly remember coming out of a movie theater and everybody driving like complete idiots because they just seen the Fast and the Furious.
That
I don't
sounds like either you were at the movie or the movie got out.
I think I can't remember. They were revving their engines and people are racing and people are, pumping their music and hitting the side of the door and things like that. And I don't remember if I was there to see something else and I came out and said, "Oh boy, Fast and the Furious."
Because nothing says Fast and the Furious like tearing off in your Ford Fiesta.
Yes, tearing off in the Ford Fiesta, listening to loud pumping music. As you've seen from the trailer, one thing that has not changed, even though a lot has changed, is there's lots of butt shots. Mm-hmm. So we're going to see lots of unnecessary butt shots.
Or are they necessary?
I think. Well, I think people expect them.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of those things that you have to have. We're going to say necessary butt shots.
If you got the bass, you got the butt shot.
If you got the bass, you need the butts, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I remember that. Like I said, I don't know if I was coming out of the theater watching something else. I think I probably was. I don't imagine that I was going to see Fast and the Furious at that time. So I get the DVD box set for Christmas. And last January, I tore through all these 1 through 7. And you're going to see a very interesting progression, but you're going to have an interesting take on it because you're basically going to be watching it backwards. Mm-hmm. So this is going to be like Memento for you, where you're going to be working backwards, and you're going to try to find out how did it go from Tokyo Drift, which was still primarily about street racing. You have very odd with this, because that means you haven't even seen one
because
any of the
from what I understand, Tokyo Drift is like the outlier here. It's
Tokyo Drift was one
it doesn't even...
It was the last dying gasp before somehow it came back and became a mega franchise. Furious 7 was the last one on the sidetrack, okay?
Okay.
This was the one where Paul Walker, and we'll talk more about this later, he died in a car accident, unrelated to filming, but he died in a car accident during production. They had to shut down, retool it, and come back and try to film. They used his brothers. We'll talk all about that later. But can you take a guess? How much money do you think that the movie Furious 7 made at the worldwide box office? Not just domestic, but worldwide. What do you think the total take was?
Oh, I have no idea. A lot.
1.5 billion. It is the number 6 or 7 most successful movie of all time.
Man.
So these movies have gone from, you're going to see a progression of how backwards of how it went from basically Point Break in Cars to what's basically now a superhero spy, globe-trotting, mega action franchise.
But yeah, that's what I kept on during the trailer there. They kept on mentioning the family. I thought it was like some mafia thing.
No, it's all about family. Everything in this movie is with family.
Yeah, family.
With family.
Hey.
So, with that being said, it's interesting that you've only seen the one that basically doesn't play into this at all.
Yeah.
You've seen this weird side one. It seems like a rule.
I've seen the Halloween 3 of the Halloween series.
You have seen the Halloween 3 of the Fast and the Furious. It seems like when you look at these franchises, the first one is successful, and then the second one, this is franchises in general. I mean, you could look at this with Batman, the Tim Burton ones, anything. Mm-hmm. You see a pattern where the first one's uber successful. They make a second one. It doesn't do quite as well critically or commercially, but then somewhere they go, wow, there's enough left in the tank for us to take a chance on the third one. And they try to do something wildly different. And most of the time it just completely peters out and that's it.
Oh, yeah.
Somehow with this, Vin Diesel decides to come back. And all of a sudden it has this resurrection like no franchise you've ever seen. Where all of a sudden now it's like we're going into the 8th movie with 2 more planned. Because I have good news for you, my friend. There's one of these scheduled for 2019 and another one scheduled for 2021. So we will be able to push into our 40s.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Watching some fine Fast and the Furious action. So yeah,
eventually they'll just be in hopped up wheelchairs.
It would be great if they're in hopped up wheelchairs.
Hover rounds.
I would like to. And then you got to think, if these things are still pulling $1 billion each, which they won't forever, it breaks somewhere. But when you're making 1.5 billion, unless you like go down to all of a sudden you're making 200 million, you got to think they have enough for. It's not going to peter out in 2 more movies.
Oh,
Studios don't let these things die. Even if all the cast leaves, they're going to try to do a Fast and the Furious 11 or 12 until it's completely dead.
Oh yeah. Well, there's one thing people like. They like the driving beat, and they like cars.
Yes, you
and
forgot about the
explosions.
butts.
And the butts.
Yes, you forgot about this real sense of family.
Family.
We're family.
Hey.
We're family.
This is blood.
What damn? So
I always loved you.
some of these I enjoyed more than others. We'll talk about all that. But again, you're going to see these backwards, so you'll see this interesting how they became this way going back. What are your expectations for watching these?
I don't really know. I mean, because I've seen Tokyo Drift, which was just insane, and the experiences I have now with it is watching Tokyo Drift Mater with my son.
Okay.
Which is awesome. But that's a side note of cars there. And watching the trailer now, I imagine, like, not having... In fact, I don't even think I've seen trailers for any of the Fast and Furious.
No, I didn't either.
Like,
I usually
just
avoided it.
completely blocked this out of my existence. So I assume, like, I'll see them going from this large, huge gang of, like, you know, top secret globe-trotting, you know, super criminals to, like, just this, like, ragtag group of, like, street toughs who, like, work on cars. So maybe it'll be, like, this devolving...
Yeah.
You know, that's my expectation, is to, like, basically witness the birth of super crime family, but in reverse.
This is going to be like a Benjamin Button experience for you. Are you familiar with Benjamin Button?
A little bit, yes.
You are in an interesting situation, and I would say the past 5 to 10 years, somewhat due to the birth of your son, where you're watching primarily anything from Thomas to now YouTube videos of people playing Mario games. You have, and also not just that, but kind of voluntarily, you've taken yourself out of a great deal of pop culture. You're not going to watch the new Marvel movie at the theater. You, like you said, you hadn't even seen trailers for these Fast and the Furious movies. Had we not talked about this just a week ago, would you even know that there's 8 of these things at this point?
No, you could have said there's 8, 100, 2.
And the 8th one, The Fate of the Furious,
Yeah.
is coming out next week. Now, do you see what they did there? Do you see
Yeah,
the pun? Fate,
see they
F8,
instead of fast.
Fate.
Yeah, Fate, and if it were a license plate, it could have been just like an F and an 8.
I wonder if we're going to see somebody with a license plate that has an F on the
Oh,
eight in
I'm
there. I would
sure.
hope so. So these movies, they're about family. They've become heist movies. They've become secret agent movies. They basically have the physics of superheroes. You're going to see Vin Diesel and The Rock doing some things with their bodies, surviving some things, literally driving a car off a cliff and crashing it down. It rolls maybe 700 times, and then they get out and they dust themselves off. You're going to see some amazing things.
Well, I assume that they have the blood of Greek gods in them.
I think they might have the blood of Greek gods in them, and I think that might be a spoiler for maybe the 10th movie. I would love it if it. I think they will
When
get
they
to a point where it's just going to get crazier and crazier.
drive a car to the top of Mount Olympus.
Yeah, I'm going to be disappointed if that doesn't happen now, I'm going to be honest with you. I think at some point, maybe when we've watched all 8 movies, 3-4 months down the line, maybe we'll do a fun episode where we kind of talk about ideas for what we think is going to happen, both serious and
That
not
would be
so
great.
serious.
Yeah.
So before we wrap this up, we've kind of talked a little bit about what our experience is with the movies. Yours next to none, and the experience that you do have might as well be nothing because it's one of the movies that doesn't tie in so well.
Yeah.
And before I forget, and we'll talk about this more when the time comes, in the linear timeline of that takes place after the 6th one. These movies, other than the 3rd one, they're in a certain linear order, but because they wanted to use characters from the 3rd one, and I think you might be excited about this, both of our favorite characters from Tokyo Drift, Han,
Yes.
he is in a lot of these movies. They had to retroactively put him in because they liked him so
The
much.
drift philosopher.
Yes, the Drift Philosopher is in these movies. They enjoyed the actor so much that they found a way to say, okay, we'll just say Fast and the Furious happens in the future. So Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift actually takes place between Fast and the Furious 6 and Furious 7.
We were like time travelers watching that movie.
We were a lot like time travelers watching that movie.
I enjoy this.
So, that being your experience, my experience being I've maybe watched each of these once on DVD. And when we sit down and watch these together, we'll do so without distraction. I'm going to be honest, I did a lot of what I call laptop viewing when I watch these movies, which I have it playing in the background and I'm looking at websites.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Because no one can pay attention to just one thing at this point.
Yeah, you're
unless
grazing.
You're being forced to. Grazing. So me having seen each of these about once, you seeing none, I think this will be a fun experience. We'll talk a little bit about the trailer, because I do want to actually talk about some Fast and the Furious. So what we see is we watch 2 trailers.
Yeah, the official 1 and 2.
The official 1 and 2. And we see Dom has betrayed the family for some reason, which I don't know either. You don't know. This is what he's all about, so this is shocking.
Yeah.
We see him kissing another woman right in front of Letty. Letty is his gal. You're going to see some progression of that. Oh, that's right, because you don't know who Letty is.
I have no idea who all these people are.
Yes, Dom is Vin Diesel.
Mm-hmm.
Letty is Michelle Rodriguez.
Okay.
Okay, they're in most of them. Vin Diesel is in all of them with the exception of the second one. He's not in the second one. And then if you remember correctly, I don't know if we stayed for it, but I think we did.
Yeah,
There's
he
a
showed up
post-credit.
at the very
He shows
end.
up at the end, yeah.
Yeah, they did some sort of thing.
Yeah, he shows up at the end. And that all gets tied into the timeline. So that's Letty, that's Dom. You'll meet other characters, and we'll talk about them as the time comes.
The Rock and
Well, yeah, The Rock.
the one guy from the driving movies.
Yes, The Rock's name is Hobbs.
Hobbs.
He is some sort of government agent that in one of the movies, I honestly don't remember which one, is given the task of tracking them down because they're all outlaws at this point, and somehow because of movie, he becomes a part of the crew. He has to work with them, and now you know that they love Hobbs.
Oh, so like oh yeah, it's one of those classic. He goes to like shut them down, and then falls in love with them, and
it's Point Break inside of what was already Point Break. They keep on finding clever ways to just remake Point Break, which you have to give them credit for. So we see
and
that.
I love Point Break. Not to go off on a sidetrack there, but
I was going to ask you, and not to get too far ahead of ourselves, not to put the cart in front of the horse, I think is how they would put it. Would you be interested when this is all said and done? I think we're going to have to do an episode about Point Break.
Oh yeah,
being that
yeah,
this is the main inspiration.
yeah, definitely.
So we see Charlize Theron,
Yeah, Theron.
Theron.
I think
She seems to be some kind of genius hacker who is taking control of
all the Tars in the universe.
all the cars. Yeah, and it seemed like they were jumping around countries, and I was in London and I saw you in Madrid. I don't know if she's got control of cars in all of those countries or if they're just referencing to like she was behind the
I
scenes for
think
the
she
other
was.
movies.
Yeah, I think she
Like
kept
I
on
was,
following
yeah,
them.
I was always there.
Like yeah, stalking.
Yeah.
Basically, she's just a high tech stalker.
She had interesting hair in this.
Yeah.
So we see that she's taking control of cars. Dom is working for her. I would assume that he has not turned evil. I would assume that
No, there was that one little tidbit where he's like, "I didn't choose to do this."
Yeah, she must be blackmailing him
Yeah.
for some reason. My suspicion is that they had to at the end of 7, and I don't want to ruin it for you, but they write the Brian O'Connor character. That's Paul Walker.
Okay.
They write him out of the franchise in a very sad but satisfying way. You're going to maybe tear up a little bit. I've known you since you were 9 years old.
No, something like that.
I don't know if I've ever seen you cry, but I think that
This will do
I
it.
think that this might do it. Yeah, I think that this might do it. And I think it's going to change our dynamic.
Possibly.
So I'm thinking that because they want to keep his character in universe, but obviously he can't be, that maybe she's holding them hostage off screen or something
yeah.
along those lines. So that way there's going to be some motivation for Dom.
Yeah. Seems to only play that hand for too long, though.
Yeah, you
So
couldn't do
long.
that every movie. Now there's talk that his brothers, who did some of the scenes in order to finish Furious 7 after he passed away, his brothers obviously have a striking resemblance to him, and there is some talk that at one point they might bring the character back to be played by one of the brothers. So, but that's, who knows. We see The Rock, and he's fighting Shaw, which is played by, what's that guy's name? He's in Spy.
The driver guy?
Jason Statham.
Yeah, there we go.
Jason Statham. The Transporter series would be
Yeah.
another terrible group of movies for us to watch at some point.
Talks like he swallowed a bunch of glass.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, he's great. The villain from the last movie, he is again having to join the family. Which you're right, how many times can they go back to that well? Where the villain from the previous one falls in with the family in the Point Break way. It's kind of, I guess, if it works.
Maybe it's just one big dysfunctional family of
Yeah.
ragtag.
Yeah, yeah. So we see that he is being broken out of prison by Kurt Russell's character, who I think his name is, if I remember correctly, Mr. Nobody. He has some very just kind of whatever government agency, I can't remember what they called it, but it's one of those like, this is this government, you've never heard of us before.
Mr. Nobody. That's like gets back to like old school comic book villains.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
this should be like a Dick Tracy villain.
Mr. Nobody would be a good Dick Tracy villain. I would imagine that like the irony of Mr. Nobody as a Dick Tracy villain is that he's very normal looking, so
Yeah.
he can't be
Just
distinctive
average,
as like
blends in.
yeah, because you have Prune Face and Clamshell or whatever their names are. They all have very distinctive faces, and Mr. Nobody would be a guy who he just looks like
No,
he
how he
looks like
just
a normal. What did he look like?
going to work every day.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Just, yay
Mr.
tall.
Nobody.
I don't know.
Yeah. So we see he's putting them on another mission of some kind. And then we see, all the regular crew, which I'm not going to lie, I don't know all of their names. Like we said at the beginning of this, neither one of us are super fans with this.
Yeah, I know.
Which-
I don't know any of their names.
We did intentionally because we didn't want to have our first podcast be one of us gushing about something and the other one not interested and sitting there and going, yeah, I'm just really not into Stargate SG-1. We wanted to
Yeah.
find something that we both kind of
Although
were
I do
going
love
in
Stargate.
fresh. Yes.
Stargate is the best show.
We'll save that for another podcast.
Yes.
We'll save that for our Stargate podcast, which will be out immediately after this one. So we see a great action sequence teased where they're in tanks on a frozen lake being chased by a submarine.
Yep.
What I think is going to be in a long line of what you're going to see are many amazing action sequences throughout this franchise that get crazier and crazier. You didn't see the trailer for Furious 7?
No,
where they're
I've
driving
seen-
through skyscrapers and they're crashing out the window and going over through the air and landing in the next skyscraper and driving through it and crashing out the window and going through the air
That
and
is
landing in the next
completely feasible.
skyscraper. Yeah, you'll see that. You'll see that relatively soon because that's in the seventh one and we're going backwards.
As long as you have nitro, I think you can do that.
I think it's called Nas, isn't it?
Yeah, nah.
Nas. Which I don't know if that is a thing. I see Nas energy drinks at the gas station, but I don't know if Nas was a thing before Fast and the Furious.
I don't know.
Nas.
I know when I was at a dealership, these people talked about this stuff left and right, and I just sort of walked away because I had no idea.
They were talking about these movies, or they were talking about Nas?
All of it.
Huh.
The movies, cars, everything. And it was like when you're like a little kid in school and you miss like one day of school and you come back and everyone's talking about something and you have no idea.
Yeah.
That was like what it was, so I have no idea.
Yeah, remember when you were also a kid, this is unrelated, and you would miss a day of school and you would come back and it'd be like, Timmy got sick in the hallway and the janitor had to come, and then, we laughed, but Mrs. So-and-so had to talk to us about not making fun of people. And it blew your mind because it was the first realization that, like, things were happening in the world outside the 5 feet that surrounds you. Because when you're a little kid, you don't realize that.
Oh, yeah.
Across the way at that house, somebody might be cooking lunch, and at that school, across the way there's a janitor sweeping something. That's completely unrelated.
Yeah.
I think.
But that's you have that missed experience, and then there's like no catching up.
There's no catching up. We'll never catch up.
Yeah.
You're never gonna know about Nas as much as those guys are.
Yeah, there's no way.
As you catch up, they're always gonna know more about Nas.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you lose 10 cents,
if I show up right
always
now
gonna be down
to be
10
like
cents.
some sort of drift racer,
yeah,
I am always going to be the one guy who like comes in last no matter what.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, and I know that's probably something that you're dealing with.
Yeah,
that you're probably at this point, it's past the age of becoming a drift racer. I think that you pointed out one good thing that I think we both should mention. I would not call either one of us car guys. No. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, Leaf, well, in Fast 5, he was driving the Charger XL. I have no idea about any of that stuff. I don't have any idea about car performance or engine. You know a little bit more about cars than I do.
I know that they call Lamborghinis Lambos.
I don't know if there's any Lambos in this franchise. That's going to be something that you're going to have to watch.
Wasn't that the orange thing he was
driving
driving around?
That's right.
They're like, why is he shooting at me? And they're like, you're driving the orange Lambo.
Oh, yeah. Well, you already know more than I do.
I paid attention to that.
I think that you already have taken out more of the trailer than I did. But yeah, so this is not going to be a podcast by any means where we're going to be sitting around and talking about the cars that they're driving. And I don't think in this movie, other than maybe the first or the second one, maybe a little bit of Tokyo Drift, I'm not so sure it matters what kind of cars they're driving.
Oh, it doesn't matter at all.
They're driving some kind of Charger or Lamborghini.
You can expect that they're souped up,
it's just
fancy
souped up
cars.
Have you seen, when you're shopping for cars for your son, though, have you seen the Matchbox Fast and the Furious line?
Oh,
where
yeah.
You can buy Dom's little car and stuff like that?
Yeah.
I may get one of those before this is said and done.
We were at Walmart last night, and they had the whole bin full of the Fast and Furious cars, and all I know is I was, like, picking them up. I was like, hey, we should get one of these. And my wife was saying, no, don't. He has enough cars. And I was like, but this is a Subi, which is a Subaru, which is another term.
You already know more. I think you're not being completely honest. I think you're hustling me in a way on your car knowledge because you've just dropped Subi and you've dropped Lambo. And
I glean those words because I'll hear people, like someone will be talking and it'll be like, oh yeah, so I was just, I saw this Subi the other day. I'm just like, Subi, what are you talking about? And they're like, Subaru. And I'm just like, oh. Subaru. So they just sort of stick out.
So, to wrap this up, at the end of the trailer, I think we see again, like I said, what's probably going to be one of the bigger action set pieces. And what was your impression on that of them on the ice? There was one particular scene that I enjoyed. I'll let you speak of it though.
I'm assuming you're talking about they're getting chased by the submarine.
They're being chased by a submarine, which in itself, they're driving tanks except for the Lambo. As you've taught me.
On ice.
They're on ice.
And the submarine fires torpedoes.
The submarine fires torpedoes, yeah. It breaks through the ice. They got a submarine.
Through the ice.
Yes.
And then, which in and of itself, I'm not sure. Anyway.
Would the torpedo just slide on the ice like that, or would it be airborne?
It would, well, I mean, it would need to have momentum to
Okay.
slide. So,
Okay.
because, I mean, nothing's propelling, it has a little propeller on the back. So
Okay.
anyway, so the torpedoes are going after these tars now because they're tar-seeking torpedoes. And The Rock is all like, grab the steering wheel to some other guy.
Yes, take the wheel.
And
They don't. I don't want to make you feel foolish, but they don't say grab the steering wheel. They say take the wheel.
oh, well,
They say, hey, take the wheel.
is that's the parlance of...
Yeah, I don't think they. I could be wrong about that.
No, I that sounds more...
Take the wheel.
That's a little bit more demanding. Anyway, so then The Rock gets out of the car, and he's holding on to, like, the car door.
Yes.
And he kind of kicks or pushes... He pushes the
Pushes it
torpedo...
with his foot.
Yeah. And just properly aims this thing so
Yes.
it slides into an enemy tank
Slides
car.
into an enemy car. This is
thing.
I think when we watch these, one question I'm going to have for you with every movie is I'm going to ask you for what you think the most absurd moment of the movie was, and then just have you try to explain it in a very, you're very intelligent, and these are not usually the type of entertainment you watch, and then you're going to explain it to our listeners. So you would say that was the most absurd moment of the trailer, or did you see something that was more absurd in there?
I mean that is definitely probably the top thing I saw. You know, the thing where, like, all the cars try to stop the Vin Diesel, and they, like, shoot the little, like, hooks into his car, and then he just...
Also a great moment.
By willpower of car alone, he manages to,
also a great moment. He somehow lifts the two cars up and crashes them into each other. Also a great moment. So we're going to wrap this up here.
Yep.
I think that we'll have a rating system.
Mm-hmm.
There's usually 4 stars, but get a load of this. I thought about this. And are you ready?
Okay.
There's also 4 wheels
Ooh.
on a car.
Yep.
So I think we're going to say how many wheels.
Okay, wheels.
Unless there's a better term for wheels. I hope I don't sound ignorant. Did they call them? I think probably just wheels. I don't think there's slang.
No, I mean, I guess you could get all fancy with rims.
We could do rims.
Yeah. This is a 4-rimmer.
No, we're going to do wheels. We'll stick with wheels.
Wheels.
So how many wheels out of 4 would you give those 2 trailers? What are you thinking you're going to think about this movie? And
I mean, for entertainment value alone, it's definitely a 4-wheel.
So
I mean,
those are 4-wheel
it's
trailers.
Insane.
And again, we're going to look at these, and it's going to be interesting because you're going to be judging these as movies, but at the beginning, you're not going to be able to judge them against the other Fast and the Furious movies because it's going to be the only one you've seen.
I have no bearing, yeah.
So at some point, maybe in our final episode where we're talking about the Fast and the Furious, we'll have to go back. I'll be very interested to see you rank them after you've seen them all. And we'll write down and keep track of what ratings you give them and then what ratings I give them as well.
Okay.
And when we go back in our kind of recap episode, we'll see if any of our ratings changed. Because you might think the Fast and the Furious 8 is a 4-wheel movie, and then you might see the Fast and the Furious 5 and say, oh, no. This is a 4-wheel movie. Fast and the Furious 8, that was a 3-wheel movie.
Fast and the Furious 2 is definitely the French new wave of Fast and Furious.
You're going to love the title of Fast and the Furious 2. Do you want to take a guess? And then we'll wrap this up.
I can't even begin to guess.
It is Too Fast, Too Furious, and they, of course, use the number 2.
Which makes sense.
Yes.
Because it is the second movie, so why not use 2?
Use 2.
Also,
it wouldn't make sense for the 4th one.
No.
So you make a good point. You're kind of a studio executive. That's what they would call a note. If I came to you with a screenplay and it was called Too Fast, Too Furious, and it was the 5th movie, you would write on there, maybe this isn't good, and that would be called a note.
Yeah.
So thank you for listening.
Yep, thanks.
We're going to be back next week. We're going to do these every other week, but we wanted to get introduction knocked out before we start going down the road. And so we'll do the Fate of the Furious next week, which we'll see in the theater. And after that, every other week we'll get together and we'll watch one of these things. And like I said, we're going to sprinkle in other movies.
Yeah.
Related. I mean, we're not going to have Casablanca in there.
No.
It's going to be stuff like maybe Triple X or
it definitely has
something
to be
ridiculous. Gone in 60 seconds. It's got
cars
something car
or something.
related.
Yeah.
At least for now. This may not always be cheesy car related movies. Maybe when we get through these, we decide we're going to do another franchise of some sort. But it's always going to be something fun.
Mm-hmm.
So we will be
Rock
talking
on.
to you all again in about a week.
Yep.
Leaf, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Justin.
All right, guys.
Cool. See you later.
See you later.